Welcome to She Sells Radio. This is going to be such a fun episode because I get to bring to you one of my clients, one of my dear friends who I have gotten to witness do some pretty incredible things over the past few years, including publish his first book, which is called Inner Sales Child: Unlocking Sales Success by Tapping into Childhood Wisdom, which if you're watching this video on YouTube, you can see him holding it up. So cool. David Ray, welcome to She Sells Radio. It's such an honor to have you, and your book is incredible. I've been reading through it, preparing for this, and I love how you are bringing people back to the truth of who they are and how that can positively influence their sales process. So I'm super excited to have this conversation with you today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elise. I can't tell you how much I appreciate being here today, but also your support, encouragement, and belief in me. For
Mm.
those who don't know, I have been working with Elise for a number of years, and she has seen the genesis of this idea and to be able to see it through its conclusion and to see what's next. And we'll talk a little bit about that today.
Yeah.
I couldn't be more excited, so thank you.
Oh my gosh. This is so fun. So, what I want to just dive right in because I feel like as I was reading through the book, it's super actionable. And so almost every line I was reading, I'm like, man, that could be a question. That could be a question. So I want to dive in and pull out some of the core themes that you talk about so our listeners can get the most out of this. And one of the core themes obviously is authenticity in sales. And now I know the word authenticity can get thrown around a lot and people are like, oh, what is it? How much does it matter? But here's what you say, which I think is so true, is that people buy from people they know and trust. And the first step toward creating trust is being ourselves. And here's what I know is that that can be hard for people to do. I think most everyone on the planet has a point in their life where they realize there's a gap between how they're showing up on the outside and how they feel like they have to be, the image they have to portray to be successful, to be safe, etc., versus who they really are on the inside and how they really feel about themselves. And so in sales, oh my gosh, I mean, this can be even more intense because we either feel like a lot of times as women, we feel like we have to be perfect, or you may feel like you've got to know all the answers and put on a front in order to be successful. So why isn't that the case? And I don't know how big of a question this is. Maybe this becomes the entire interview, who knows? But how do we overcome that if we don't feel comfortable being 100% ourselves yet?
No, so lots to unpack there.
Yeah.
A few things just to get out, from the start. You're absolutely right, and I'm glad you picked up on that as being kind of the central theme of the book. For me, what was such a challenge early in my career is I felt the need to have a personal identity and a professional identity. I felt like I needed to come across a different way, at work, in front of clients, in front of coworkers. And that really created this divide in who I really am versus how I was perceived by so many people that I was working with. And that ultimately created that imposter syndrome that you hear so much about, within a lot of work. What I've, often found though is, when you look at sales and you look at success and what do you need for not just immediate success, but sustainable success, it really does come down to that authenticity and establishing a rapport, creating trust, differentiating yourself. Those are all key aspects of a successful sale. There's a tongue
Mhm.
twister, but they're all linked to authenticity. So think of, who are you? Why are you doing this? What makes you different? And also, how can you make others feel? Because that's a big key. It's not just about what can you sell them, how can you come across, what kind of feeling, what kind of emotion are you going to, evoke, within them, because you want to make
Mm.
them feel heard and validated, understood, appreciated. You want them to feel like, you are present and that you are their only client when you're speaking with them. You don't want it to feel like this is a sale. In fact, something my grandfather Pop, for those who haven't read the book, he is a key character
Yeah.
within my book. And one of the reasons that I am in sales today, one of the big things that Pop used to always say is when it comes to sales, don't try to sell anything. Just provide value. Just try
Mm.
to find ways to help people overcome a problem that they're having. If it happens to lead to something that you can help with that ultimately turns into a sale, fantastic. But if you lead with that value centric mindset of just trying to help people and make their lives better, it makes you feel more fulfilled. It also lowers the barrier of entry with your potential client because they don't feel, you know, always on guard, like they have to protect themselves from here's the pushy salesman coming in. They just see a friend, a colleague, oftentimes who really just wants to help. And to me, I
Mm.
think that's a really important aspect of sales that often gets overlooked is, don't try to sell. Just allow it to happen naturally. Create an environment where a sale can happen rather than forcing something.
I want to come back to that because you talk about that in the book too. So
Yep.
that was actually a question I wanted to ask. I'm glad you brought that
Yeah.
up. I think about as you're talking about this, when I first got into sales and I was in my early 20s and selling yellow pages to start. So I always feel like a dinosaur when I say that.
That's
Moved
been a
on
minute.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, right. Moved on to digital media and did well in that. But I just remember feeling like I had to be someone completely different than who I was and being really motivated to be successful and top of the leaderboard. But just feeling this massive gap in the image I was putting out versus how I was feeling inside. And it wasn't until I did some of the work that you teach and that you talk about in the book. And really it's kind of a returning to who you really are at your core and realizing that that person, those elements that we had and that we embraced maybe as kids or when we were younger that we put away or that we thought wouldn't make us successful, whether it's the curiosity, the play, the connection, relationships, creativity, that when we return to that, we can actually create far more sustainable success. And that really helped me make that shift. And it's certainly been a journey. But I'm just thinking about for someone listening who, and maybe they're like me and they're like, I was in my early 20s and I was just like, the gap felt so huge. Where would you even start? If you feel like if someone's listening and they're saying, holy moly, okay, I know there's a gap, but I don't feel safe being myself with other people. I don't think I could be successful. I don't like parts of myself. Where would we even start with that?
Yeah. So a couple of interesting things there. And really what you touched on is fear.
Mm,
And fear is something that held me back for a long period of time within my own career. It actually held me back from telling this story. I have
mm,
been sitting on inner sales child inside of me for 15, almost 20 years
mm,
because I was scared. And what was I scared of? I was scared of judgment. I was scared of rejection. I was scared of failure. Um, I actually came across this quote. I just wanted to read quickly. Watching movies a week or so ago, and it's
yeah.
a movie After Earth with Will Smith, and it talks about fear. And I think this really kind of hits, right on the head, what fear is. So he says, fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Now, do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice.
Ooh.
That really kind of
Mm,
hit home with me because I recognized I was worrying so much about something that hadn't even happened yet. I was
yeah.
playing all these scripts, from people are going to hate this. They're going to judge me. They're going to think that
Yeah.
I'm a failure. This message isn't going to resonate. And there was so much of me in this book, so much of me, my family, my thoughts, my own fears that I happily
Mm,
shared. I didn't want to be judged. But what I came to realize, is a couple of things. One, again, fear isn't real. I can choose to succumb to this emotion, or I can power through it and actually
mm,
help create, the reality that I seek. But the other thing I've noticed since sharing all of this, even through the process of creating as well as after the book came out, people only judge when they haven't done what you are trying to do. If
ooh.
they've
Yeah.
actually done the
True.
work and if they've actually gone through the same thing, they're not going to judge you for it. They're going to empathize with you. They're going to support you. They're going to inspire you. They're going to validate, yes, me too. I feel this. Let's, work together on this. Let me see how I can help you. Maybe we can help each
Yeah.
other, through this process. So don't run away from that fear. Recognize that there are more people that are in the same boat, than you may realize. It's kind
Yes.
of like when we were in elementary school. and you would always have a question. Everyone always had a question, but you were scared to ask the question. And you were so happy when someone else asked the question because you had that
Mm,
same question. You just didn't want to raise your hand and ask it and be viewed as, oh, well, he doesn't know. But it's very much the same thing. Go out and try it. Go out and, speak a lot of this stuff into existence. Show up
yeah.
as yourself. Have the confidence to do that because by doing that, not only are you stepping into the life you want, you are inspiring others, whether you realize it or not, to do the same.
Wow. Yeah. Ugh. And I think it speaks directly to authenticity as well, because we lose our authenticity when our focus gets distorted and gets focused on what others going to think, what are they going to say. I love what you said about the judgment piece, that people only judge when they haven't done what you're doing, and often when they want to do what you're doing, but they haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
And is it Brene Brown who talks about in the arena? I think it was a Teddy Roosevelt original quote, but just talking about, are the people in the arena with you? Because they're never going to be the ones who judge. They're going to be the ones who uplift and support. And
Yeah.
anyone who judges is jealous, right? They want to do what you're doing, and they're
Right.
projecting that. So I'm glad you did that work to get this out into the world, right? Because you and I were talking in the pre-chat about just everything that's happening for you. Maybe we'll talk about that at the end. So if someone is listening and they've been sitting on writing their book or getting their message out into the world, they can maybe hear just even early on some of the doors that are opening up for you now that you've launched this work, because it's powerful. But I
Right.
want to ask, I want to go a little deeper first. You mentioned this earlier, and I think this is a really interesting dialogue to have. So you talk about making the shift from making a sale happen to creating an environment where a sale can happen. So can you speak to that a little bit more, and what do you mean by that?
Sure. So you've touched on this a little bit, already, in our interview today, but something that you and I have actually spoken at length about in the past, masculine energy versus
Yeah.
feminine energy. Um, when you first mentioned it to me years ago, I had no clue what you're talking about. I'm thinking, I'm a man, I'm in sales, I'm just
Uh,
going to go through and just do what I do, And what I've since, come to realize is the importance of being more empathetic, being more open, having a softer side, if you will, to sales, buying or finding a way to connect with people at a more meaningful, deeper level rather than
mm,
trying to construct a sale. The engineering mindset that I had, and for those who don't know my story, I actually started as an engineer in my career. I was always good at science and math, and it was just natural to go into that. It wasn't until I had a VP of sales at a company I worked for that recognized maybe I had a little something extra that he took a chance on me in a sales role that I started, down my sales journey. But early on, I tried to take more of that rigid, forced sales process, check all the boxes. If you do this, you will be successful in sales approach.
mm,
Not saying that that's necessarily bad or wrong, but you have to temper that with a more emotional connection, with your clients. You have to be able to understand that when you talk to a client, especially in a B2B sales like I am in, they have a business pain, but they also have a personal motivation for why they do what they do.
mm,
Maybe it's to advance within their career. Maybe it's, to get, that, higher visibility and validation that they've always wanted. Maybe they want to,
yeah.
change and go in a different direction, but whatever it may be, tapping into not just the business motivation, but the personal motivation can really help win them over as a champion and a long-standing client. So trying to temper how we do sales and understand that if you're, female and are looking to, you know, improve your sales, maybe you need to embrace a little bit more of the masculine energy, into your approach. But if you're, you know, a man looking to go into sales, what I have found is creating that open environment of trust and understanding has been, far more beneficial and productive for me in sales than just trying to go in, knock a door open, and make a
Yeah.
sale happen.
Yeah. Which is so much of how I was raised early on in sales, how I think a lot of us are, especially if you come from a more hardcore sales background. And it's so It's all about the result, which obviously we need to have a result, right? We need to have that. But to your point, David, what I love about what you shared, and I especially appreciate from the perspective of a man speaking to integrating that masculine and feminine energy, because even women, when I mention that, a lot of times they're like, "What are you talking about?" That was my response. The
Mhm.
first time I heard that, I thought it was strange and out there, and I thought, "What does this have to do with my success?"
Right.
And for men too, they often have that same response. And what is so powerful is we all have both types of energies in us, right? But masculine is goal oriented, it's outcome driven, it's the process, it's the result, which is important. And then feminine is more about, masculine is the end result. Feminine is about the process. It's about the journey. It's about the experience. It's relational. I think our society has gotten completely wrapped up in what's the result, and we don't even pay attention to the process that gets us there. And I was moved when our almost 4-year-old, now it's just crazy, he's in Montessori, and I was learning about the Montessori training curriculum. And when a kid makes a piece of art in a lot of schooling, or in, I just think even when I was growing up, like, what's the feedback that they get when they share it with someone else? Is like, "Oh, that's beautiful," or, "Oh, that's not that good." It's all about the result. But the question that the teachers ask in Montessori is, what was it like for you to make that?
Mhm.
How was the experience of making it? And
Mhm.
it's not about the result. Like, the result will take care of itself. So to your point, I was just thinking about that while you shared that concept of the creating the environment where the sale can happen. It's, let's focus on not just the result, but also what's the process like to get there,
Mhm.
and how can we create the best possible process and experience along the way that will, if we focus on the right things, create ultimately enough sales to, for us to hit our goals and beyond. So long
Absolutely.
aside there. Yeah, anything you would add to that?
Yeah, so I think that's a perfect marriage between the masculine and the feminine, because you can
Hmm.
actually do all of that goal-oriented, metric-based, process creation, but you can actually do it alongside your client to make sure that their feelings, their
Mm,
expectations are a part of that. And it creates
yeah.
this really great collaboration that I think strengthens the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved it. Yeah, coming alongside the client, being the
Yeah.
advisor, definitely. You share, I was laughing as I read this story, and knowing you, I thought, "Oh yeah, I bet he did this," but it made me laugh. You share a story about, as a child, taking the telephone apart, which I'm
Mhm.
thinking now, if I saw one of my kids taking obviously a different type of telephone, but taking it apart, I would say, "What is going on?" So anyway, shout out to your parents because they
Yeah.
obviously supported you, but you took it apart, then you meticulously put it back together with fewer parts. And
Mhm.
that I think inspired or helped introduce some of the concepts of efficiency.
Yeah.
And I know that's something that you're big on. I know that's something that you coach and consult clients on as well in your work. And I think today, obviously, so many distractions, so many interruptions, unneeded, but sometimes feelingly needed operational work and part of the sales process. How do we how do we start to get more efficient in our work? And I know that could be a day-long seminar, but maybe just one or two pointers that you can share for someone who wants to become more efficient in their sales process.
Sure. So I think first and foremost, it starts with having a process. You have to have something
Mm,
documented down. You understand what steps you're taking on a regular basis. Once you have that recorded, then you can do some work to unpack, how is this furthering the sales process? Is it pushing it forward? Is it effective? Or are you just spinning wheels? Are you wasting time? And what I mean by that is there's a lot of tried and true sales methodology out there. And I'm not sitting here hating on process by any stretch, but just because it happens to live in a book, or this is what, so and so's manager said, this is what you need to do to be successful in sales, it may no longer serve you, or it
mm,
may work for other people, but it just doesn't resonate with who you are and your particular approach. So
yeah.
it's important to take the time to look at what activities are you doing? What are you doing with regularity? Which ones are working? Once you figure out which ones are working, so that would be your effectiveness, Then you can go one step further and start looking, how are you doing those effective things? Are you doing it in an efficient manner? Are there some steps that you can cut out? Maybe there are some different tools you can implement. Maybe there's an opportunity to hire an assistant to outsource some work. Maybe effective scheduling, so you're not traveling all over the place, meeting with different clients. You can meet more within a central location. So all different types of things that you can do to make the effective things more efficient. But it starts with
Mm,
understand the process, understand which things are effective, then you can really work in the efficiency side of things. I think
yeah.
far too often people immediately say, I need to be more efficient, and they start on that side, and that's where they really get tripped up.
Without starting to look first at, well, what actually matters and
Right.
what moves the needle, and then how do I become more efficient in those things?
Yeah.
It's the 80/20 rule, right? Which is
It really
very
is.
eye-opening if we
Yes.
do that. And look, and I did this a while back and I realized there's like three core things out of maybe 15 or 20 general types of things that I do every day that have actually created most of the revenue for our company. And so
Mhm.
when you look at that, and everyone has the same scenario, you just have to look at it.
Yeah.
But if you can look at that and hone in on those vital few, those 1 to 3 maybe core effective things you do, and then, and this is the part I haven't done yet or haven't thought about intentionally, which I'm excited to, how do I make those core few more efficient?
Hmm.
Things start to get exciting and probably start to multiply, right?
Right.
So, yeah, yeah.
And something else interesting, and I know you've shared this multiple times since we've spoken, but also on your social, sales doesn't have to be this long, drawn out, time consuming, 24/7 grind.
No.
We really can, you reduce everything down to its core elements, just a few simple things that you need to do to be successful in sales. And, you can really focus on, like you said, that 80/20 rule. Just
Mm,
get really clear and tight on that process, really drive the efficiency there. And you'll find you'll open up so many opportunities, to do other things, just so much more time available. Maybe you reinvest that back in your business to further grow it. Maybe you look at, other elements of your life, personal or professional, that you want to invest in as well. So um, definitely, does not have to be, that I'm busy all the time, I'm stressed out, and I don't
mm,
know what to do next. I don't have time for this. If you
yeah.
feel that you're in sales and you don't have time to do anything else, it's a really good indication that you need to take a look at your process and start to figure out which things are just wasting your time, because there are a lot
Yes.
of time waste when it comes to sales.
Huge, absolutely huge. And I think the other thing too, for someone to look at if they resonate with that is the whole busyness is a badge of honor thing. To me,
Mhm.
it's a cover up for insecurity. It's a cover up for inadequacy. Raising my hand as someone who used to use it. It's let me be so busy so I feel like I'm in demand, so I feel like I'm valued,
Yeah.
and really it's a great opportunity for some inner work around that too. Because and you talk about this in the book. It's about working smarter, not harder.
Mhm.
But that's a shift we have to make in ourselves. So I want to ask one final question before we tell people where they can get the book and how they can connect with you further. You mentioned Pop a little bit earlier in the interview, but I know he was such a big influence on your life and
Pop was my
oh,
guy.
he was your guy. Yeah, I know. And even when you and I were coaching together, like I know we talk about him a lot and his influence and his energy in your life, even now, right? So I think it's powerful what you're doing to continue his legacy through this work. But just giving, honoring him through this interview, what would you say is the number one life lesson that you learned from Pop that you're grateful you learned?
I'm going to give you two because
There
I
you go.
know this is a little bit more from a professional slant, and I want to make sure we touch on that because there
Yeah.
is one from that. But from a personal standpoint, family first.
Mm,
That is the greatest lesson I learned from him. He always made time for his family, no matter how busy he was, no matter what he was doing. Everything he did from a professional standpoint, it was always family focused. He always knew, no matter what he was doing, that was his why. That was the core to who he is. That no matter how stressed he may have gotten during a day, no matter how busy he may have gotten, no matter how far he could have been taken away from his family, just, with meetings or business travel, what have you, he did everything for his family and with his
Mm,
family in mind. So that was a key foundational element of who he was at its core. And that's something that I have certainly embraced, and I try to live my life, as such.
yeah.
The other thing, and I've,
Amazing.
I've touched on this already, and someone feel is more important than what you sell.
Mm,
While we like to think that our product or our service is revolutionary or the most amazing thing ever, at the end of the day, it's how do you make someone feel? Do you make
yeah.
them feel, important, validated,
Mm,
understood? Are you helping them? At the end of the day, are they, you know, in a better place, because of you? And do they feel comfortable reaching out to you, even if it's, hey, I don't know if you can help me with this, but I know you and I trust you. Can you just give me your thoughts and perspective?
mm.
That type of dynamic, seeing him embody that every time he would go meet with a customer, and I was lucky enough to be alongside him to see that. That's what I've tried to tap into my entire sales career.
Oh, that's powerful. Well, I think his legacy, right, leaving some of those lessons behind along with a lot of others is it's very cool that others will get to learn from him and take some of those lessons like you did, getting to shadow him actively just through reading your book. And you are now creating your own legacy with this work and with impacting a lot of lives with it. So, let's do this because I want you to share where people can connect with you and how they can get the book. I also would love if you could share for a minute because you're doing some really cool coaching,
Mhm.
consulting, speaking, and maybe even just share for, I would love for anyone who's sitting on writing their own book and hasn't launched it yet to maybe hear how things have manifested quickly for you with this as a
Sure.
result of the book. So if you don't mind sharing that too, I think that would be great for people to hear.
No, happily, and thank you for this opportunity. So to
Yeah.
connect with me, the best ways currently are Instagram at David Ray. My LinkedIn as well. That's a great way to connect with me, as well as send me an email, david at blue-derby.com. The reason I say currently is I am in development of my website for Blue Derby Consulting, and it's an umbrella that I'm using to launch a number of different endeavors that have really all been inspired by and created by the launch of Inner Sales Child.
Mm.
Things such as sales training, speaking engagements. I had a group do a book club, on Inner
Amazing.
Sales Child, and they invited me to come out and speak on that.
Wow.
I have been drafting and developing a new series of monthly newsletters to help not just sales reps, but also sales managers increase engagement with their sales teams, by providing them a monthly theme with some key topics, some rhetorical questions to help drive engagement, as well as some links to some outside sources that I think may supplement a lot of their sales meetings. Because what I've found, like a lot of salespeople, these weekly and sometimes monthly sales meetings, they're really dry, boring. A lot of people don't engage. It's oftentimes they're being talked at. This is a great way for them to have a much more open, collaborative discussion on topics that are central to improving different aspects of sales. So I'm
Mm.
really happy about, launching that as well. So be on the lookout for blue-derby.com. I'm hoping to have that launched within the next few weeks and really look forward to getting that out there to just evangelizing the message of authenticity and how tapping back into our authentic selves, our unique approach, what makes us different can really be the path forward, to success, within sales.
Yeah.
And
It's
for those who are interested in Inner Sales Child as the book, it is available now as ebook as well as paperback on Amazon. At the recommendation and gentle nudging of a lot of friends and family, I'm in the process of recording an audio version of that as well.
mm,
Talk about
nice.
stepping out of your comfort zone,
Good for you. People
but
need it. Yeah.
they really do need it. And what I've
Hmm.
found is I'm very audiobook focused as well, especially when I
Yeah.
have windshield time. And at first I was thinking, oh, well, I'll just, let some service read this. No, it has to be
Yeah.
me. This is my story. No one's going to tell it like I would. So,
Yeah.
um, starting the process of getting that done, which the cool part is not just the work on the Blue Derby side, I'm already planning out my next book. So part of this
Mm,
whole creative process, it's inspired me in so many different ways. I see so many different opportunities, which it's interesting you talk about how quickly things can manifest because as I told you, I sat on telling this story for many years out of
mm,
fear. When I finally got around to doing it, doors and opportunities just started opening up for me, things that I
yes.
never even dreamed about. So, what I would tell anyone, if you have a story to tell, a picture to paint, a song to sing, a business to start, whatever it may be, even if you don't know how to get from A to Z, it doesn't matter. Just start it. Don't wait
Yes.
for the right time. Don't wait for someday. Someday never comes. There's no someday on the calendar. Trust me, I've looked for it. Just go ahead and start. And just recognize that it's going to change you and change everyone around you for the better in ways that you can't even possibly imagine. So
Mm,
please just do it.
yeah. Oh my gosh. What a great tone to complete on. I really, I'm just so happy and excited for you with what you've done with this book. It really is powerful. I encourage everyone go get a hard copy, get the audiobook once that's available. That's super exciting and that's a great act of service on your part to do that. And the lessons that you'll take from it will they'll help you not just in sales but in life, we'll put it that way as well. So David, thank you so much for coming on today and for sharing your wisdom, and just again, huge congrats on the launch of the book. It's really exciting.
Awesome. No, Elise, thank you so much. I can't thank you again for just all the help, all the support, all the inspiration, over the past few years, and more importantly, the friendship. I
Yeah.
really do appreciate that. And I would be remiss if I didn't say congratulations on Permission to Be Powerful. So as one author
Thank
to the
you.
next, I'm very happy for you.
It's fun to launch a book, isn't it?
It is.
It's
It
almost
is.
surreal when you see your name on Amazon for the first time and you're like, whoa, that
The
feels
first
strange, but
time
kind of
I
cool.
ordered my copy and I actually held it in my hand,
Yes.
it's one of the most powerful feelings I've ever felt to know that I created this.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I know that feeling. I feel exactly the same way. It's so cool.
No.
Well, to you, my listener, I know you enjoyed this conversation, and you got so much out of what David had to share. So we will link all of his contact information in the show notes. Go check out the book. Go get the book. Connect with David on LinkedIn. Check out his website. And I really, really trust that you were as inspired from this conversation as I was. As always, thank you so much for being a listener of She Sells Radio, and I'll see you on the next episode.